Hello, everybody, and welcome to our VMware live Q&A. Now hello, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Thank you, Brian, you can hear me. Anyone else can hear me? Brian saying that. We're going to give everybody, perfect, Brian heard me again. Thank you, Brian. I see there's we have a good number of people on here. We're waiting for just a couple minutes before we start. Oh, hello, Ashley. Now, this is going to be a unique experience for people because what we're going to do is we're going to, and I'll share this now in case anyone is dying to get in here and join our chat. But we are going to allow you to come up and join with us. So if you have something to say or you want to be in the chat, you have a question that you want to come throw out there, any of that join the discussion, go ahead and go click on that link. We'll see you come in here, and then we'll go ahead and add you here. So we've never done this before, so we're a little nervous, but hopefully you guys are all be really nice and great guests on here and be very interactive. But you can join there, or if you want to go ahead and drop us a question, you can put it in the live chat. We may answer it in chat, or we could answer it live during the Q&A. So, and see everyone's found the chat because I'm seeing people drop in. If you guys can, kind of a fun thing I've done in other of these live events I've participated in, if that link does not provide a dial-in number for audio. Anthony, this is only the second time we're using this platform for a live event. I'm not sure about audio. Let me see if I can find something. I don't know if they offer anything. I don't see anything. I'm sorry, Anthony, but this will be recorded. He's just telling me it is. It's going to be recorded so that we'll be able to share it, Anthony, if you can't actually participate on the audio. Let's see if I can see anything on here. Sorry, guys, I'm looking here to see if they're giving me anything on the settings to be able to share with people. No, I'm not seeing any dial-in number for audio other than what you guys may have received. If anyone received anything with an audio number, go ahead and post that in the chat. This is what happens in live, guys. We're kind of figuring some stuff out. Josh, what did you find? You sent me an article in Teams.
Yeah, looks like there's not a specific number to dial into, but you can join in from your phone without camera and join that way.
There you go. That's a good idea to go ahead and jump in another way. So anyway, so guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. We have some stuff prepared, but really we wanted this to be interactive. So as you guys have questions, throw it out there. As I said, if you want to be part of the actual discussion at all, then we'll be periodically posting that link again so that you guys can jump in and come on stage with us. And if you don't want your video, you can always tell us, or you just not turn on your camera and you can always join just audio. We're friendly people. We're okay with that either way. So first things first, licensing. To give an agenda actually first, we're going to go on licensing for a few minutes, pricing for a few minutes, and then really people came here to talk about alternatives. So we want to spend the majority of time talking about alternatives and getting people's experiences out there on the alternative packages out. So first with licensing. If you don't know, Broadcom, Matthew posted a phone number.
8675309.
That would be awesome if that was it. So licensing, if you didn't know it, Broadcom has made the switch where it's now packages. It's all subscription. There are three main packages. For most people, I should say, there are three main packages. There's another cloud option, but you have Essentials Plus, Standard, and Foundation. Actually, let me put it here, and I'll give you a link also. Here is if you don't need to write this down, let me jump over to chat real quick, and I'll post it there as well. So I know it's a lot easier to just copy there than to try and write down every single character in this address. But this is a VMware's lengthier description of all the different packages. I'll also post, Josh and I just did a video on the licensing. And let me go ahead and I'll post that into video on licensing. And so that's one that we did as well. And so that's what I just posted in chat. So if you want to hear us talk about it, it's very similar to what we talked about here. But Josh, for those who have not already seen that video, can you give us just a kind of a high level overview of what some of those key differences?
Yeah, in that video, we went through the various packages that VMware is offering now. Starting at the bottom, you've got the Essentials Plus, which entitles you to up to 3 hosts and 96 cores, similar to that of the old Essentials Plus package, except it's not up to 32 cores as it is there. Then from there, if you need to go past 3 hosts, you got vSphere Standard. Feature-wise, you're limited to vSphere Standard features as you were previously, so no distributed switching, DRS, or anything of that nature. Next is going to be your VMware Cloud Foundation, VMware Foundation. That's going to be your entry point for vSAN or Enterprise Plus feature sets. And then from there, you go up to the top of the tier when it comes to features and anything that you could possibly want to do in vSphere, NSXT as well, with the VMware Cloud Foundation package.
Now, Tyler, and I didn't do some introductions, so I'll do those right now. Josh and Tyler are two of the solution architects over at xByte Technologies. We also have Dakota Klum with us. He is CTO over at xByte Cloud and has experienced a lot of these packages as well. And I'm Ryan Brown. I am CMO of xByte Solutions, another one of the xByte family. So kind of all of us with different experiences out there. So Tyler, solution architect, xByte Technologies. Are there any features that customers have asked about that they used to get for free, or that used to be a cheaper feature, but now is a gotcha? Saying, oh wait, I'm gonna have to now use Foundation, or I'm gonna have to use Standard, and before I can get away with the Essentials bundle or something like that.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that have come up that we've kind of had to navigate and help customers understand. So one being, there's no more Essentials kit. So that's one of the the core virtualization packages that would customers would utilize to essentially begin their their step into or their journey into virtualization. So that's no longer there. The lowest tier, like Moss had mentioned, is Essentials Plus kit. And one thing that's changed, just directly looking from the original Essentials Plus kit to now, is the number of cores. So now you're limited to a total of 96 cores total, where in the past you could do more than that. So that's something that to keep in mind. And then just overall, one thing just in general is not so much on feature sets, but just how it's licensed. So before you had to license vSphere, and you also had to license vCenter, and there were two separate instances. And heck, I'll even throw in a vSAN if you wanted, vSAN features, you had to, license that separately. Now they're all bundled into into a single license package. So, depending on what tier you want for what features you want, you have to select a certain tier. So Essentials Plus kit, that gives you your 96 cores total. That's physical cores across, the 3 hosts. And, that includes vCenter. So, just like in the past, or if you want your own, I call it like an island of VMware. So, although that vCenter within that Essentials Plus kit can't see external hosts and other, other environments, but that's what you want if you're just getting into, a virtualization segment for the first time. Once you get to the standard, that no longer is a predefined kit of X amount of cores. that you get in a single package. It's, you're on a new model now. If you have to license per core, and that's per core per socket. So that's something that to keep in mind there. But what's nice is that all of these include vCenter. So standard, foundation, even cloud foundation, they all include vCenter, whereas before you had to separately license. And then once you get into the vSphere Foundation suite of the licensing packages, and even the Cloud Foundation, that actually includes vSAN as well. So no longer do you have to pay for vSAN licensing, pay for vCenter, pay for vSphere. You can essentially get them all wrapped into one single bundle of licenses, depending on what tier you are. And again, that's where if you're confused as to which makes most sense, either feature wise or even most cost efficiently, that's something we can help guide you as well. For instance, there's been several instances where we've had customers who in the past they would standardize on the Essentials Plus kits or the Essentials kits because it made more sense cost effectively. But they would only have one server. But even then, it would make more sense because it was that much more cost effective than going with standard and vCenter on top of that. Now it makes sense in some scenarios where even if you only have a single server, it doesn't make sense to just go with the Essentials Plus kit anymore, right? It makes sense to go with that higher tier of licensing because you're getting that vCenter bundled in and you're only licensing that single host. And again, that's where we kind of help determine what makes more sense cost effectively.
Okay, I'm hearing or seeing a lot of comments here about pricing. So let me get. I'll jump into pricing, and actually I'm going to post this out here. So here is a link to a pricing tool. So let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen here. It's off to my left, so if you see me looking over that way, that's why. So in the link I sent out there, there's a video that we go over this tool. There's also a way for you to download a copy of this. It's an Excel tool that we built to give us a quick way to kind of do some comparisons. And so you can put in your number of servers, number of CPUs per server, and the number of cores. So one of the questions people were asking, okay, hey, is it per core, per socket? Is it per server? There was early on, there was some misinformation out there that it is per server, but the licensing, when you get into, when you're looking at standard or foundation, it is 16 cores per socket. So it's not per server. So if you, and that's their base charge. So if you only have 8 cores, then that's physical cores. If you only have 8 physical cores, you will be charged for 16. So in our little calculator here, you can plug in the servers. If you have 2 CPUs, you can run different comparisons. If you're getting into vSAN, you can enter this extra information here. You can tag in the add-on, and it'll calculate your pricing there. There's some funky things that it does. The vSAN licensing is by TB, which I believe you take terabytes, you divide by 1.1. And I don't know why they decided to do that. I'm sure there's some logic by somebody about why they need to do that when there's just a math calculation to get there. But this tool does all that calculation for you. But you can do this if you want to do some comparisons. You just click the compare button. It'll bring in another set, and you could say, okay, hey, if I only had 1, if I had 32 cores, what does that look like? And so that you can compare. Okay, here's if I wanted to look at standard. Here's what my pricing would be. And so this is the first one you're looking at with this configuration. Each of the different, either the 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year price on the commit. Now, and these are all just the list pricing. I'm sure you can negotiate and get better pricing. And I'm seeing a question here about. I'll answer this right now. Josh, the question is, did you hear that vSphere Foundation includes vSAN?
That's correct. It does include the vSAN feature. With each core that you license and pay for, you only get 100 gigabytes per core. So anything that goes past that, you have to do the per vSAN terabyte add-ons.
And I think you and I were talking about this before. You don't get credit for those 100 megs per core. So as soon as you go over that, you're now paying the full price for those the vSAN premium.
Yep. So like if you're licensing 32 cores, you're going to get 3.2 terabytes. If you have 10 terabytes of storage, at that point in time, you have to license 10 terabyte separately as an add-on, because once you start doing add-ons, that complimentary 100 goes away.
So loads of fun there. But this tool gives you a little bit kind of a price that. Here's the 1 year. There's a premium on the 1 year. When you go to a 3 year, actually, or 5 year, on a per year basis, it's all the same price. So, but the advantage of doing a 5 year commit is that you do lock it in. So in case Broadcom decides to increase their prices again, you locked into that price for the full 5 years. Now, what we are encouraging some people to do, if they're on the fence, is to just to go ahead. It will be more expensive, but to do just a 1 year commit and see how things shake out, because this market is changing. People, I was hearing some things about Nutanix may release their hypervisor by itself. There's all different kinds of things that are, which could be true or not true out there, and we'll see how the market shakes out. So that is definitely an option. Is to go ahead and let the market shake out. So this does give you the 1 year. You do those comparisons to kind of do that. It's nice because if you wanted to see, okay, hey, look, does it matter if I do this? You can see here it does not matter for price if you did one 32 core or two 16 cores because of that. Now, what you will see a difference on is if we're to do two, let's say 8 cores. Now, it's exactly the same price again. So there's really no advantage to doing anything below a 16 core from a VMware licensing, because that's going to leave you. You can see here, if I do my 8 core set right here, it's the same exact price as my 16 core set. So I'm comparing these two.
And just to clarify too, for you, Darvesh, is the 64800, that would be, even though it's technically a subscription license, you're paying it up front. So that 64800, that's a one-time payment of 64800. So you're not paying that every year. Yeah, when I hear subscription licensing, I think, okay, we have to pay it monthly or pay annually, but nope. You just your ownership rights are just subscription based. But yeah, that payment is just a one time. And then I also think I missed Matthew's question up above about the per core per socket. So just to give you a quick little example, if you had a 2-host environment with dual sockets and you have 8 cores per socket, even though you only have a total of 16 cores per server, again spread out across 4 total sockets, you have to license 64 cores, because like Ryan had mentioned, it's a 16 core minimum per socket. So that's where we kind of wanted to reiterate or highlight the fact that it's per core per socket, because a lot of times you hear, oh, it's per core licensing, I'll just do a total of X amount of cores across the server and call it a day. But unfortunately, in this scenario, it's per cores per socket, so you have to look at each socket by itself. Hope that answers both of your questions.
And as Tyler mentioned before, the Essentials Plus, it does not matter what you put in there until you get to over 96 cores. It's always going to be the same exact price. So that's just their price. If you're using this calculator, we do have an annualized button or tab right here. So I can go ahead and copy what's already there. And now you can see here, here's your, I found a bug in our calculator. I've got to talk to the developer on that one, because the annualized Essentials Plus is the same number, and that's not accurate. So, oh no, I'm sorry, that's just 1 year. That's why it's the same, because it's just 1 year, because there's annualized is the same. So you can see here that if you look at an annualized, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clear this comparison, make it easier to kind of run one on here. This is what I'm doing. You can see here that on a 3-year commit, it drops down. There's about a 15% drop in price, but the 5-year, your annualized price is exactly the same. So just something to look at. As I said before, that just all it does is lock you in for further time.
Ryan, real quick, to Nicholas's question, can we up that core per processor on the Sizer to 16 cores? it should stay the same. Yep,
It
there we
will.
go. Yep. So yeah, so that just kind of shows too where, if we have a processor that is the same, I'm sorry, much more performing because it's 16 core over 8 core, but of course it's, maybe roughly the same price or not too much of an increase on cost of upgrading the CPU. It very well might make sense to upgrade that CPU because you're not costing any more from a licensing perspective. So that's where we can kind of again look at your overall situation and see how we can best fit your scenario and your workload into saving the most money with this VMware model. And again, that's kind of what we're here to help you guys kind of take some of the stress off your shoulders. So
And also you can plug, another thing you can do is we talk to customers all the time about, hey, how can you drop how do we decrease licensing? Of course, you can go ahead and increase the number of years of your commit. That's a good way. But you can see here, once I go to 4 servers, then all of a sudden that two CPUs per server, 16 cores each is 32. That's now above the 96. So I can no longer do, check off comparisons. So it's not confusing anybody on there. So here we're looking at, you see here, you no longer do Essentials Plus. So if you're looking at this price, you're like, okay, this is pretty expensive. What can we do? Well, one of the exercises we can do with you is we can run different workload analyzer tools to get an idea of, okay, hey, where are your spikes? I know Live Optics is a good one that we talk about with people. So we can go ahead and run those tools to figure out, okay, hey, are you hitting your using up all your resources? And let's say you're not. We can go ahead and say, hey, look, we're going to go ahead and because you're paying per core and not per memory, let's say you have plenty of cores available, we can go ahead and up your memory. Let's say we can move it from one server to another. You may be able to decommission one of those servers. So before you agree to a commit to anything, say, okay, look, what can I do? So if you're in this situation right here, you're looking at, okay, hey, my 1 year price would be $9,000. But let's say I can go ahead and drop that down to 3 servers. Now all of a sudden that I can do Essentials Plus on that. So if you're able to do that, up your memory, still be able to maintain all your workloads, you're able to drop your price there in half, and at least give yourselves that 1 year to figure stuff out, and then look to kind of do a recommit. So kind of different ways out there that you can go ahead and drop that pricing. Tyler, anything else you've talked to customers about as far as ways to kind of drop the price?
I mean
I know
that's
he's
pretty much
still in your thunder.
no, that's I mean, it's pretty much it. And I mean, it's every situation is different, right? And that's kind of, our jobs to kind of, really sit down and speak with, as the customer to understand not only what your workload and what your environment entails, but what your expectations of growth and what your goals are. Because even if, we may be positioning different options today that, again, may not be an upfront savings, it may play into your 5-year, 7-year, 10-year growth plan where we're saving you long term, where it's growing with you and it's something that's tailored towards you and what your expectations are. And again, every situation is different, but I think it really comes down to just taking time to understand what they're looking to do and what features they truly need and what can be cut out of the situation. So.
All right, thank you. Now, alternatives out there. So this is one that everyone wants to kind of chat through. I'm going to put up a couple sources of information here for everybody. If you've not already looked here, you can look at the history on Reddit for the VMware sub. There's lots of discussions on this, so you can jump in and look at any of the threads out there doing the comparisons over the last 6+ months. About people posting stuff and getting their opinions and stuff. So that's a great place to start to get information. But in talking here, and I'm gonna put up something here also. I saw this somewhere. People talk about Broadcom's playbook, and okay, are they going to invest in R&D? There's just been employee cuts, and what does that look like? So here is some. This is now. Caveat to this, when I read it, it does seem kind of definitely in favor of Broadcom. But it does talk about some of their history and what they've done with other organizations. as far as they do cut out middle management and then invest in that R&D side of things. So at least with this, that's what this article is claiming. So a good one to kind of look out there. So Proxmox. I see Brian's posting something with Proxmox. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring Dakota. You've been sitting there patiently for your chance to chime in with something. I know that you've looked into this, and you've with on the cloud team, as we've opened up data centers, you've looked at, okay, hey, what are the alternatives out there? Can you give us some of your impressions of Proxmox and kind of just some of your journey?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. So I think from our side, when we were exploring alternatives, Proxmox was definitely top on the list, and what we found, they do offer some support options. They do have a vSAN alternative, which is Proxmox Ceph. As far as the overall management of the platform, it is a little different than your day-to-day traditional VMware deployment, but I would say it wasn't too hard to wrap our minds around. With that being said, I think, some important considerations when you're thinking of a Proxmox or like a Hyper-V, or any other kind of hypervisor alternative, you really need to look into, what's the cost of effectiveness of the overall solution. So is it supported? Is there a big community that can help address any questions or concerns you have? What kind of engineering investment are you going to have to put into, someone learning about that new product? If they've worked with, VMware for 10 plus years now, what does converting to Proxmox actually look like there? I think another important item is really the migration support and kind of overall capabilities there. Like, what are the conversion options? I think Proxmox just came out with a new tool. And Josh or Tyler, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it's called OVH import, which is doing VMware, which is capable of doing a VMware to Proxmox conversion. So that's certainly something you can look into. Lastly, I think another important item is it compatible with your current backup software? Are you leveraging any kind of replication today? Is your whatever backup vendor you're using, is that suitable in a Proxmox environment as well? So
yeah, Darvesh Beam is something we've been hearing also. As Dakota mentioned, backup. I'm going to go ahead and post this to join us. So if you do want to join us, and Darvesh, you mentioned that you have it on a test lab. So I'd love to get a live customer on here to talk about their experiences. So if you'd care to join us, please follow that link, and I'll go ahead and add you on here. Again, even if it's just audio, I'm sure people would love to hear some of your experiences from a customer standpoint live on there. But yeah, Proxmox is a big one. Their support being next business day has been a consideration from a lot of customers. You can get third-party support. You should be okay with that. Okay. The other thing we encourage customers to do is to think about things that you've had to troubleshoot with VMware. If you any kind of bug you've had to troubleshoot, and now pretend like you're trying to do that for whatever hypervisor solutions you're looking at. Can you find that same information readily available out there to help you do your own troubleshooting? Especially if there's going to be next business day support, you need to have that. And they're, depending on what you've used to do some lookups, you may be able to find it, you may not. And so that's across the board. That's for if you're looking at Nutanix, if you're looking for Proxmox, any of those guys out there, the Starwinds of the world, XCP-NG. Have you heard people, oh, we got Darvesh. All right, Darvesh, I'm going to go ahead and add you. And it's not limited to just Darvesh. If anyone else wants to join us, Darvesh, welcome.
Hello.
You're now famous.
Oh, boy.
So thank you for joining us. So can you mentioned you I think on a test environment, you have Proxmox running. Can you walk us through kind of like that journey?
Yeah, sure. So a little background, we're a software as a service company, and we have a Dell vSAN cluster on our 640s, running great for a while. So we went ahead and procured the exact same hardware, R640s, onboard SSDs, all that fun stuff, and started installing Proxmox. Went through the Ceph installation, and it all worked really well. Some of the concepts are a little different, but if you can set up a vCenter cluster, I think anybody is capable of setting up a Ceph cluster. It's pretty wizard driven. I don't think there was almost very little command line driven work involved. And once it was set up, I just created a blank virtual machine. And Veeam is a big component of our environment. So I think the trouble became, well, how do we restore these backups into a Proxmox virtual machine? And at that point, we pretty much resorted to using like the ISO, bare metal restore ISO from Veeam, fired that up in a Proxmox VM and established a connection to the Veeam server and browsed our VMware backups and hit restore. And that worked for SQL servers, IIS servers, file servers. We tested all of that. And the restore process worked fine. The only bug I ran into is for some reason, the virtual environment off the Veeam ISO, it's stuck at 100 meg. And it has nothing to do with whatever driver you use. It's just stuck at 100 meg, and I haven't figured that out yet, even though it's a 10 gig VM connection. But other than that, it works fine. The other sticky component is if you're using Veeam to do your transaction log backups, you can no longer hit the SQL server. You have to hit the cluster name of the availability group of your SQL server. And then transaction logging truncation works fine out of Veeam. So that was the only hiccup I hit. But now it's been running since December. So basically all of our software development now takes place on virtual machines that are running on Proxmox, and they're all Windows VMs.
Any gotchas that you experience from a management perspective, and anything that's harder or easier?
I think just getting used to the interface is different. I mean, like I started with VMware when it was on GSX and original ESX version, so you get kind of used to where things are and how to find them. So just getting used to the interfaces, like things have moved around, and but yeah, we tested things like they call vMotion migration, so moving virtual machines between hosts is quick. It's all based on whatever your network backbone is. There weren't really any gotchas that I can think of. Like we tested pulling some disks out of the hosts and then putting them back in and watched them rebuild. It was pretty straightforward in terms of what we experienced on the Dell R640s.
Nice. And then any workloads that did not migrate over, or were you able to get everything over?
Not yet. So like a lot of our virtual machines are SQL, IIS, and file servers because of our SaaS-based workloads. So those are the only kinds of servers I was able to migrate. I wouldn't bother attempting something like Active Directory because it's just easier to just spin up a whole new domain controller. I haven't had any issues with any sort of migrations. I wish that tool they just recently launched existed when I first started testing. I wouldn't have to go through all these hoops through Veeam. I'm excited to try that out and see if that works better than what my Veeam process is. But yeah, it's been okay. I haven't had any hiccups or issues.
Great. Any audience out there? Any questions for Darvesh? I mean, you have a live. This is like even better than Reddit. You have someone live to answer questions. And not having to wait for them to post something or to worry about getting flamed. Although
if they don't, I have a question for Darvesh.
Yeah.
Are you using the enterprise repos with subscription? I was just curious if you've had any experience with the support, either based in Europe or maybe one of the US partners.
That's on my list to tackle. So like right now, it's just running on the open source repo, but we do want to look at acquiring the actual full license and see what the support experience is like. I did read on Reddit somewhere that there are vendors that do 24/7 Proxmox support, but we will need some sort of help if we were to kind of run this on the production level. But before we do that, that's next on my bucket list. So I haven't had a chance to check out their enterprise repo or their support or anything like that at this point.
And I know I've talked to other people who put it in test environments. Some are good experiences, but they've yet to put it into production. So I'm curious to hear people who've actually put into production and some of their experiences with that support. You don't know why, but next business day from a vendor's, I mean, and who knows? Their support may go 24/7 here shortly. If they're looking at any of the people saying, hey, we can't go enterprise or can't go production because of the support, they may be figuring out a way to deliver that and taking on more of the market, because I definitely hear them mentioned a lot. All right, Darvesh, anything else? I mean, since you're here, did you look at like a Nutanix or a Starwind? Since you're looking at Proxmox, you look at XCP, NG, any of the others, and kind of can give some of your experiences and your comparisons.
Yep. So basically what drove this was expanding our vSAN cluster. And we actually did that through you guys, and that was a great help. And that's when sort of this whole...
I was going to ask if you bought your servers from xByte, but
yep.
I was like,
yeah.
You're only allowed to say good things.
Yeah, Ashley Sanders, she's our rep, and she took great care of it. But yeah, so what happened was with this whole vSAN thing and the buyout happening, it was VMware came back and saying, oh, you're installing more CPUs, so you need more vSAN licenses, and that didn't sit right with me. And then that merger happened, and we're like, you know what, we need to look at some other alternatives because this is not a good taste. So that's when the first thing was XPNG and Proxmox. I just chose Proxmox first, so we're just running with it. We're gonna run it for at least 6 months, and then I'm gonna pull these workloads off and transition the same servers to use XCPNG and see how our experience goes there. So this is just the first round of testing, and it's gone well. But yeah, that's next on our bucket list. We haven't really checked out Nutanix, and I've never really had any experience with it. But yeah, no experience with them, unfortunately. But one thing I want to ask you guys, if I'm able to ask, is like we obviously have our vSAN production environment. Are you seeing a lot of customers ditching the vSAN and then moving to something like VxRail to keep their perpetual licensing in place?
Josh, I'll let you kind of tackle that.
Yeah, we've gotten some interest in that. There are going to be some changes coming down the pipeline for the Dell and Broadcom relationship in the future, so probably won't be as advantageous. But when it comes to more budget conscious customers, VxRail is not necessarily a good fit because yes, it is the Cadillac of VMware integrations and features when it comes to managing LCM, but with that comes a higher price point.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we allowed to talk about the next gen VX or the Apex?
Yeah, I mean it's a public it's publicly known. So Dell has, if you're familiar with Dell's previous Hyper-V solutions, HCI solutions like S2D or the AX nodes, that's something where that's transitioning into a new platform that Dell now calls on 6th gen hardware. It's called ACP for Azure. So ACP stands for Apex Cloud Platform. They're trying to really drive home the brand of their Apex infrastructure. But regardless, that paves the path for the the Hyper-V side of things. But there's also two other flavors that are available as well. One is ACP for Red Hat, and essentially, same concept of being a software-defined storage solution, but instead of doing it with Azure Stack OS, they do it with Red Hat. And then there is another one that was, I believe, supposed to be already released, but the whole acquisition kind of changed things a little bit. But that's going to be ACP for VMware, or now I guess for Broadcom. But regardless, that's now labeled as coming soon. So it hasn't been communicated on how that's going to be from a licensing perspective, but Dell still has plans for VMware, regardless of its VxRail or PowerFlex or ACP for any of those hypervisors I mentioned.
Now, would that ACP replace VxRail?
No,
they're different workloads.
Completely different. Yeah, okay. So VxRail is still, today the only, hyperconverged solution that is truly a turnkey appliance that was built from the ground up with VMware in the kitchen. Because if you remember back when Dell had VMware underneath its umbrella, that's when it was designed. So that's kind of really what makes VxRail so unique is, right, there's so many solutions out there that, put licensing aside for a second, but so many solutions out there that are hyperconverged and that were designed for VMware. VxRail is still to the day the only solution that was built with VMware in the kitchen when that hardware was being developed. So that's really what sets it apart. And VxRail Manager really does, does really separate that, and like Josh mentioned, make it the Cadillac of all hyperconverged. But again, with everything that's going to happen, there is, a lot of transitioning that's happening, a lot of evolving, and that's something we just have to kind of keep staying, up to date with Dell and VMware for updates. But again, I don't see anything negatively impacting overall because, again, like I said, Dell is still coming out with more solutions backed by VMware, such as not only VxRail or vSAN ESA, but also ACP for VMware or even PowerFlex. So.
And Darvesh, I see Brian chimed in on the chat here that they have 20 VxRail hosts, and Dell said they have until April 30th to sell perpetual licenses in VxRail. So if you're going to consider that as an option, you have. Are we already in April? We are already in April. So you have 26 days.
Oh boy, I don't
It's
think
not an April Fool's joke, right, Brian?
that is not long to make that decision. But maybe if Brian moves off of that, he'll sell you some of his or something, if that's even allowed. Oh, Brian's saying not long at all. I thought Brian was chiming in not long at all that he's going to be getting rid of his VxRails. So I think Brian's going to be loading up on VxRails. All right. Darvesh, anything else you want to share with the group? Any other questions for Darvesh audience?
No, I'm good. Thank you for adding me. This is a really new experience.
You're very welcome. All right. I'll go ahead and drop you off. Darvesh, thank you very much.
Thank
you. All right. So other alternatives out there. So I know if you guys know xByte at all, we're on the technology side, we're a Dell shop. And actually, before I give too much credit to xByte Technologies and too much spotlight on them, since we do have Dakota here, I should probably share the spotlight on the cloud team as well. So we talked about ways to kind of reduce the price and stuff early on, and as we talk about alternatives, cloud is definitely also an option, an alternative for people. So as I'm talking to people, they're also looking at, okay, hey, I buy on-prem. Is now the time to keep exploring cloud as an option? And so as you looked at, okay, hey, using that calculator, can I drop my price at all? Okay, you know what? I can do that if I move these workloads somewhere else. So you can move that workload. I mean, maybe you can move that workload to like a Proxmox environment. Maybe it's a Starwind environment. I know they have some lower end clusters that are very interesting, although they can also handle more. But you may also move it to the cloud. So it could be a great time to kind of look at cloud. Is that a way to offload some workloads or all workloads? Maybe you move all those workloads to the cloud as you're looking at options. I know people are looking at Nutanix as an option. That's just because really they don't like what Broadcom's done. It's not necessarily a big cost savings, and that may be an option for those customers to move to the cloud. And then you can also get out of management. So as you're looking at things, kind of an option out there definitely is to look at the cloud. I don't know, Tyler or Josh, one of you guys want to chime in on PowerFlex for about a minute, kind of give some information, and then I do want to spend some time on Nutanix because that's been an option that people have asked about as well.
Yeah, you want me to take this, Tyler?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, so what PowerFlex is it's Dell's. It's kind of hypervisor agnostic in the sense that you can put a lot of different options on the physical hardware that you want. It allows you to be really flexible, as the name kind of implies, with how you want to configure it. You can have separate compute and storage nodes. You can combine the storage and compute node aspect into all the nodes and do an HCI-like setup. But as I mentioned, you can do VMware, you can do Red Hat, you can do Red Hat virtualization, Hyper-V. You could probably even do Proxmox. It's not on the list, but it's Linux under the hood. You could even do bare metal. There's also some like compatibility with OpenShift for containerization and such. But yeah, it allows you to mix and match and kind of pick and choose how you deploy the infrastructure. Tyler, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're seeing more customers transition to, especially because that does truly provide um, the best and maximum performance that you can get out of a solution, especially when it comes to Dell's portfolio. I mean, we have a lot of customers who are looking at especially like an all NVMe SAN, whether that's PowerStore, PowerMax, but customers really just looking to have no ceiling when it comes to scaling. I mean, PowerFlex is definitely something we're seeing positioned because again, it can just provide that much more horsepower, not just per node, but again overall, and with how large you can scale that cluster.
So in the audience here, chime in if you've done any of these comparisons on Nutanix. We can share some of that experiences, and as well as having us talk about some of our experiences with customers. All right. It looks like nobody has looked at Nutanix, or everyone's afraid to mention that they've looked at Nutanix. I have seen so people moving to Nutanix. There are camps that love it, camps that don't love it. So definitely out there. Support. I've actually heard people saying that the support. Oh, Brian's here. You know what? Brian. I'm gonna add you. Brian, I see audio only. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah, so at the company I work, we started out with.
Hope we lost your audio, Brian.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so the company that I worked with, we started out with Nutanix, and it's been working great, but we decided to move to VMware, which was fine, a year or so ago, and then realized, wait a second, the bottom dropped out from under us. So Nutanix itself was pretty impressive. It did all the stuff that vMotion would do. It had the distributed storage like vSAN. Support was okay. I was actually, and honestly, the support was better than the times that I've created tickets with VMware. I've gotten quicker response from Nutanix. So it's a nice platform that has the equivalent of VMware tools you got to install in all your VMs. Performance seemed similar because I came from mostly VMware background. I didn't as early as Darvesh, but like ESX4, I think was my first experience. But when I started here 3 years ago, we were mostly a Nutanix shop, and we migrated after we got the XRL because we went with the XRL because like, hey, there's a gigantic cost savings with VMware licensing because we get Dell. Now we got, like you said, 25 days to make our last decisions before we start having to worry too much or a lot about it.
Now, Brian, with Nutanix, I've talked to people where they've had some issues with workloads or applications on KVM. Did you experience any of that where you had to have a separate cluster still running with another hypervisor?
Yeah, no, not really. No, it was very comprehensive with all the workloads we had. We had probably about 70% Windows and 30% Linux. So
yeah, also the scalabilities I've heard is nice because you just add a new appliance and it just works.
Yeah.
All right, great. Any kind of Nicholas, I see here you commenting about you're just approved partners with Nutanix. You're looking to explore their offerings. We'd love to have you jump in, join us, or if you have any questions or you want to kind of chime in with anything about your experiences so far as a new Nutanix partner. Now, full disclosure, we're not Nutanix, or actually, I don't believe we're Nutanix partners. We are xByte. We're not. We don't sell a lot of that. But we do work with customers as they're exploring their options. Oh, Brian, it's cool. I get to hear my echo. All right. Not seeing any comments. All right. Well, Brian, thank you for joining us. He just dropped off. Brian, thank you very much for joining us. It was great to kind of hear your perspective and the kind of summarizing what he went through. Great support, better than VMware. I've heard that other places as well, from other customers. Also, I've heard this differing from people. Some people did have to have clusters out there to kind of take on some stuff that wouldn't work with KVM, but he didn't. They did not have that, and you guys have a decent sized environment, so it's good to hear, and it's easy to scale for that. So Nutanix, I do see that I have heard that as an option for people who are in larger clusters. They're looking for options out there, but you're gonna still have a high price and a bigger learning curve. So it's just something for you to consider when you're out there. But I have been hearing good stuff about that. You are also locked into their appliances, and you're doing hyperconverged. So as long as you're okay in that hyperconverged space and adding their appliances, you're good. So just some things to look out for with Nutanix. Anyone else want to chime in on the team here about some of their experiences with Nutanix talking to customers? I know Josh, I think Tyler, you guys were just talking to somebody about Nutanix just before you got on today's call.
Yeah, we we have seen several customers talk to us about either transitioning to Nutanix or even I hate to say it, but more so than not, we see customers asking about transitioning away from Nutanix or other options from Nutanix. Um, a lot of it has to do with just the overall long-term price that we've seen. I know recently, since everything kind of happened with VMware, where I know Nutanix has been getting aggressive on the licensing costs and hardware costs and whatnot to try and get additional market share. But prior to all that, the story's been the same across the board from several customers that they're getting quotes for $200,000-$300,000 quotes, because I know Mosh might be able to speak on this a little better, but the premium to start a new cluster, essentially you have to start with X amount of nodes and whatnot. So that does kind of is where they get you, and then of course the long term renewals as well too. But yeah, I hate to throw that in there, but like I said, it's just that's what I've been hearing mostly from customers. But again, we have customers who have Nutanix and love it, right? So, I mean, it really comes down to what solution works best for you, not only just the hardware piece, but, licensing and software piece as well, because just like any Reddit thread or anything out there, what makes sense to one person, might not make sense to hundreds of others. So it really comes down to, what fits right to you and hearing, what your expectations are, what your needs are, and kind of working around that to kind of fit that mold.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to throw out to the panel here a couple more options. Hyper-V. I know it's kind of built in with the data center license.
Mm-hmm.
Are we seeing a lot of movement to Hyper-V from a pure virtualization standpoint? And then follow up to that, are we seeing the same kind of movement from vSAN to Azure Stack, which is their hyperconverged?
Yeah, so I think it depends. I will say if a customer loves the vCenter, they've used vCenter for years. They love the management piece. They love all the, they're getting the most out of all the features of VMware and vCenter. I will say that those types of customers we're seeing more so complain and not wanting to go to Hyper-V, which is without a doubt, I think, definitely justified. Because I mean, for the longest time, vCenter really has laid, the groundwork to what management of virtualization, should look like and feel like. But I will say that we have several customers who are really, more so agnostic about what they, they're managing their environments with, and even if they're not getting all the features of what they're getting with VMware or vCenter when going to Hyper-V, they're still going there because it is potentially saving them money based on their workload. But again, it really depends on what their environment looks like, but it really depends on just a normal virtualization aspect. Moss, I know you've managed both environments, so you can kind of speak to WAC versus vCenter and et cetera. So
Yeah, before getting to that, I would say for a lot of the customers that we encounter, they're already paying for Windows Server Data Center licensing. So it seems like the most natural and easiest and cost-effective choice because they're going to have to pay for that anyways. But as far as management goes, it is a little bit sprawled whenever it comes to management tools. As you mentioned, WAC, Windows Admin Center, I'd say that's Microsoft's answer to vCenter as a management piece, but in my opinion, as a VMware guy, it's not as good. And from there, you have the failover cluster manager, you have the individual Hyper-V manager, and then you have System Center virtual machine manager. So it's kind of pick and choose what do you really want to use. If you do System Center, you have to pay for it. So I will say it's not as unified and smooth to use as a management concern when it comes to VMware, or even Proxmox, for example.
Okay, so yeah, so you're looking at that as far as selections go, look at that and said maybe the cost saving is worth the extra. I mean, if you're looking at a $50,000 to $75,000 increase and it's only going to cost you a half a head count, maybe it's worth it to pay that person to manage it for you, or a quarter of a head count. It's definitely something that's in the calculations as far as the extra head count goes to handle some of this. And then another one out there, Starwind. I know early on I've worked with them in the past, and they're small. Their 2-node cluster was a big one because VMware wasn't even touching that at that moment from a robo standpoint. What are your guys' opinions on Starwind? What are you guys hearing from people? Is that because they're also hyperconverged, so from a vCN alternative?
Yeah, that's something that we've seen customers standardize on Starwind for years. I mean, it's a very solid solution. I mean, and it's nice too because they utilize their virtual SAN architecture to, like I said, to start as small as a 2-node switchless configuration to mirror between nodes, and the expansion is quite easy. That's also something that whether you're a Hyper-V shop or you're VMware, etc., right? There's solutions on Starwind for that. And they're even taking it as far as giving you full flexibility as far as all NVMe, doing NVMe cache, hybrid, etc. So they're very flexible with what the architecture is underneath the hood. And and the licensing model is pretty affordable and fair as well, from what we've seen directly, and then also what customers have agreed upon. And Starwind, they're just getting started, I feel like. I mean, yes, they've been doing this for quite some time, and their architecture is great, but they're also putting a lot of money into their long-term future solutions, as well as far as backup solutions and DR strategies as well. So that's something that Josh and I recently had the the privilege of sitting down with some of their architects and understanding how the architecture works and what's really in the plans for them. So yeah, Starwind definitely is a very viable solution that, again, we don't see going away anytime soon.
I see a question by Brian about storage spaces direct, or S2D. That was when we refer to as Azure Stack. That's for Azure Stack HCI.
Yep.
That's the new storage spaces direct.
Yep. So
they rebranded it.
Exactly. So there's a lot of names for that. So in the past, it's been known as Storage Spaces Direct, S2D, Hyper, or Azure Stack HCI, etc. It depends on what generation of hardware you're putting it on as to what it's called. Just fair warning, anything 15th gen, any S2D or Azure Stack solution that's built on 15th gen is going end of sale as of September 30th of this year. 16th gen is Dell's latest and greatest as far as their server hardware goes. And any storage spaces direct or S2D, Azure Stack HCI solution built on the latest and greatest 16th gen is going to be that's going to be branded as what I mentioned earlier as ACP for Azure, or Apex Cloud Platform for Azure. So in the past, you had the option of choosing between either Windows Server as the OS or Azure Stack HCI operating system. Moving forward with 16th gen and that ACP for Azure architecture, that's going to be built solely on the Apex, or the Azure Stack HCI operating system, rather than the Windows Server data center. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. And then also, Brian, you had an earlier question about vCenter style management for multiple Hyper-V hosts. One thing that I would definitely encourage you to look at if you are a Dell shop is they have an open managed integration for WAC or OMI. WAC is what the acronym is. But anyway, it's if you're familiar with Dell's management of their servers, there's iDRAC for single server management, and then Open Managed Enterprise for the multiple server management. There's a plugin that you can do that incorporates with WAC or Windows Admin Center that allows you to have more of a single pane of glass management in WAC when it comes to your server health and management as well. So that's something that I would recommend. And a lot of times that's depending on what your iDRAC and Open Manage or not iDRAC, but what your Open Manage license is, you may even already have that included. You just have to activate it. So that's something to look out for. And they have eval licenses if you want to try that for free to see if it's worth buying or not.
All right, one last question here. I know we're at the top of the hour, or bottom of the hour, I guess. One of the two. We're at the hour since we're at the 3 o'clock Eastern time. But Nicholas asked a question about mixing in on a VMware Essentials Plus. So you have VMware Essentials Plus. Can you mix generations? So 2 R640s and 1 R650. Is that going to be an issue from a feature set goes to have different CPUs across generations? And any gotchas with that? First of all, is it okay? And then a gotcha, will any features not work? I think I saw some posts somewhere talking about vMotion, but I don't think you can do that in Essentials Plus Kit anyway across different generations of CPUs. So Josh, you answer that one?
Oh yeah, I just did, but I can verbally answer as well. Yeah, you're the thing there. You're still bound by obviously the 96 core ceiling, but as far as if they're being clustered, as I mentioned, you just have to worry about EVC being enabled, so that way you can move VMs from different generations of processors, because your 15 gen is going to have a 3rd gen Xeon Scalable, and your R640 14 gen at new is going to have 2nd gen or 1st gen potentially. So just having EVC enabled to move between those, or if they're just standalone nodes, not in a cluster, then you don't have to really worry about that.
And that's
is
true.
That feature on Essentials Plus, the EVC?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's true across no matter what VMware tier you're at, or honestly most hypervisors out there will recommend, of course, for all features and max compatibility, right? Keep all hosts the same, but in realization, right, we have several customers who maybe they only have enough budget to upgrade a couple of their hosts or one of their hosts, and they have to mix different generations or different configurations, and it can be done. But like Moss mentioned, there's a couple features that you might not get unless you you enable the EVC. And then one other thing I just want to kind of reiterate and clarify too is with vSphere Essentials Plus Kit, you do have the capability to vMotion between hosts. It's just think of an Essentials Plus Kit as if you have a VMware environment with Essentials Plus Kit and use standard foundation. You have all these different licenses. Essentials Plus Kit is really like an island. So you can't do anything off that island. So if you have an island with 3 Essentials Plus servers, you can vMotion between those. You can do all your features that within that link that you shared, Ryan. That's all checked under the Essentials Plus Kit column. You can do all of those, but that's only within those 3 Essentials Plus Kit servers. It can't communicate with anything outside of that. It's its own little, like, the easiest way to describe it is it's an island, right? It's everything is contained within that. So
one quick question for you guys, because I may have misspoken earlier or missed on the calculator. Is Essentials Plus, is that just 3 nodes, or can you go 4 nodes?
3 nodes.
I guess because they're billing 16 cores per. But if you had single socket machines, could you go to 3 nodes or no? Or can you go to 4 nodes or just 3 nodes?
3 nodes max.
Nope. Okay.
And same thing too, keep in mind, this is something we have to confirm. So in the past, and I'll just, some of you guys might remember this. So some of the old, I believe it was the acceleration kits, back in the perpetual days, if you had a kit that was for, say, a max of 3 servers, dual socket, you couldn't say reiterate that and divvy that up across, say, a single quad socket server, or a very large single socket server. That's something that we're still trying to get clarity from VMware on what that looks like now, if you're able to kind of divvy that up, or maybe if you don't have 3 hosts, if you can drop it down to, say, 1 host with 96 cores. All right, we're still trying to get that clarification. But you can, without a doubt, that you definitely can't go past 3 hosts. That's a definite answer there.
All right. Well, great, guys, and thank you guys for everyone who joined in and participated, and hope you guys got some great information from this. A little promotion here: if you guys are looking at any of the hardware, please stop by xbyte.com, talk to our company xByte Technologies about your options. They can also get you in touch with Dakota and the xByte Cloud team in case you are looking to kind of offload any of your workloads to the cloud. We're here to kind of help out in. Thank you very much, Josh, for putting that out there. Dakota's gonna get angry if you don't also post a cloud one.
Getting that one next.
Okay, there we go. It's easy. All you do is add cloud at the end of it, xbytecloud.com. But yeah, so thank you, guys. Take a look at us. For any of that stuff, we can definitely help you out with your virtualization journeys. So Dakota, Josh, Tyler, Darvesh, Brian, also part of the crew today. Thank you guys very much for joining in. And the audience, thank you for the questions. It's been great. Reach out if you have any questions. But for everyone here at xByte, thank you guys for joining us. And have a great day.
Hey, shout out Manny,
Thanks,
Nick.
guys.
I love it.
That's a plant. All right. You guys.
See ya.
Bye.